Hi, Karen. Hi, Seema. Hi, Zilly. We'll just wait. There's about 20 people joining us, so thanks, and be patient. Get a coffee or a wine. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Margaret. You can unmute yourself at this stage, and you can chat or say hello. But once we start, I'll get everybody to um, put the mute on again. Hi, Julie. So hopefully we will start right on 6:30 because there's quite a bit to colour. So we'll just wait a few minutes. There are supposed to be 20 people.
Hi, everyone. This is Seema.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So we've got a few more minutes. While we're waiting for other people to join, I'll just get you to put in the chat room how you found or how you discovered this workshop. It'll be useful for us at Environment House to find out how people are discovering workshops, if it's that you're just browsing on Humanitics or if you've gone through the EH newsletters or off the Facebook side or something like that. So if you can just let me know via the chat, that'd be great. Hi, Julie. We have a few more, or another minute before we'll make a start, and then I'll just occasionally will stop, and if someone needs to join, I'll let them join in. Good. So it looks like a lot of people saw it on Facebook. Excellent. It just again helps because Facebook's a little strange for advertising now. It's not quite like it used to be, and it's a hit and miss thing. I do my own workshops through Wasted My Resource site as well as working with Environment House, and I've just discovered that it's quite difficult sometimes. Okay, it looks like somebody might be having trouble maybe. Oh no, that's all right, I think. Okay. So I think what we might do is I'll make a start, and as those people want to join, we can. Oh, okay, so I will just share the site now. Hopefully, can you just let me know? You can unmute. Can you let me know whether you can see there a PowerPoint presentation? I'm just going to go to the main screen. So Karen, can you see that?
Yeah, I can see.
Excellent. All right, so we'll make a start. Oh, and I'm just going to admit Lorraine. Hi, Lorraine. Okay, so just want to say welcome. Thanks very much for supporting Environment House, and I'd like to share some of my knowledge tonight about my gardening experience. I've been gardening for years and years. My parents were keen gardeners, and as a child, I take a bit of an interest. But it wasn't really till I moved out to Serpentine. For those people that don't live near Perth, it's about 60 k's or 55 k's out of the city. And we moved here because my husband and I were then and still are very keen dressage riders and breed horses. So we wanted to be on a property. But I had also been very keen to be an organic gardener as well. So I've learned, like lots of people, through trial and error, but I've also increased my knowledge as I go along through reading and joining groups and all kinds of things. And so that's what I'm going to do today. So tonight I had said that I would do a slide presentation and show you some videos. I've noticed we did a practice, my husband and I, tonight, and the videos are going very slow. So I will try it, but I think what I probably will do, I'll get, just to make sure it's not just my place, I'll probably just send those to you because they're both YouTube videos that I've made. And I'll do that straight afterwards. They're both about 10 minutes each, so you can watch them quickly straight after and while everything's fresh in mind. And yeah, but I'll check it first of all to see and get your reaction to see whether it is slow. I'm not sure what's going on there, but because they do work perfectly on YouTube. So anyway, so we'll kick it off and we'll get going. So the message, you know, how do you first start gardening? And I will always say to people, if you have never done this before, always start small. Okay, so the smallest thing you can do, and a container is the best thing to do. And you can start off, you know, in a super small container, even a pot plant growing small Asian greens and lettuces, and you just build on success like that. Even if you're a little worried about doing that, start with sprouts. They're simple, lots of seeds in a pot plant. Seeds germinate really, really quickly, especially this time of the year. Autumn and spring is a very forgiving time to grow because the soil's still warm. Over winter, it's a bit colder and the seeds don't germinate as quickly. So start small. Now, I've shown you a few options there. That large photo is actually taken at Hillcrest Primary School. So we'll just let Liz in. Hi, Liz. So yeah, Hillcrest Primary School is a very old government primary school in Bayswater. Haven't got much in the way of, you know, modern facilities, but they have got some waste champions at their school that just work so hard on a sustainability program, one of which they decided they would grow a veggie garden on an old disused basketball court. They've got a fabulous gardener who got behind them, found all those big containers in a mining salvage yard, got for free, and they're all growing bush tucker in most of those containers. And super, you can use anything to grow vegetables in, basically. You know, you can buy those, you know, really fancy raised veggie garden beds, or as I show you in one of these videos, that top slide there, that is in the ground. A lot of people forget that all vegetables were grown directly in the ground, not in a raised garden bed, directly in the ground. So don't discount that. You don't have to go and buy fancy things to grow vegetables in. And I will actually show you in one of my videos how to, oops, we've just got to admit a couple of people. Hi, Rachel, and hi, Jill. So yeah, going back to this one, I'll show you in one of these videos how to turn horrible yellow or grey sand into really good soil. You don't need to go out and buy expensive garden soil. Sure, you can go and support your local centre, but unless you have live on a old converted chicken farm or pig farm or something where you know that they use chemicals, you don't have to worry. You can plant directly into the soil by improving it, and I will talk about that tonight. Okay, so what about, so preparing our soil is the most important thing. And that top picture, that top slide shows you basically 3 types of soils you can, that you'll have, and you can, I'm sure you'll identify tonight. So the one on the left is just pure sand. It's either yellow if you live near the coast, or if you're inland, it's like Banksia grey sand. So they call them Bayswater or Leederville sands. The water runs off them, they're water repellent, and everybody thinks you can't grow in them. Well, you know, if you look at the slide, the picture on the right, that's clay. And in the video, I show you how we know it's clay when you add water to it, and it just crunches in your hand and clags together. There's one extreme to the next, from the open sand to that sludgy clay. We've got to find somewhere in the middle, and you can create that loam. If you can add, it's easier to start with sand, believe it or not. You can add clay, powdered clay, which you can buy in clay products from most garden centres, and your own compost, and you will get that beautiful soil in the middle. Okay, you don't need to go and buy it. So that's a bit of a revelation to a lot of people, and I'm happy to show you how to do that. The other thing that you should do before you start is to do a pH test on your soil. Vegetables grow in a range from about 6 to 7.5, and you can buy a very cheap pH meter from Bunnings or other garden centres, which it's a probe and you put that into the soil. They're not quite as accurate as the one I've shown you on that slide there. That's with a chemical reagent, a bit like testing a pool, where you add a couple of drops of this and a couple of drops of that to get a reaction on your soil. Now, it's really important, because if the soil is too acidic, normal vegetables won't grow in that. You'll get blueberries to grow in it, but you won't get normal vegetables to grow in it. And all the yellow and orange colours are the acidic soils. If your soil's alkaline, it'll be purple, various ranges of purple. And again, normal vegetables won't grow in there. So you have to adjust your pH by adding, if it's too acidic, you add sulfur, and if it's too alkaline, you add, sorry, it's the other way around. If it's too alkaline, you add sulfur. If it's too acidic, you add lime. Now, if you're trying to remember all this, I send you this PDF, so don't worry about that. You can go back and refer to it, but it's a good idea to test your compost as well, not just your soil. And even when you get a bag of potting mix, because not all potting mixes and companies are very honest about this, and sometimes they don't check. I have had one come back, my sealed bag, and it was a bit alkaline. And I went back to my soil place and told them. So they will let those manufacturers know. We go to the next slide. So you then have to decide whether you're actually going to dig or no dig. Now, the latest in the last 5 to 10 years in soil science, we have learned a lot about the microbes that live in the soil, and fungi, even though they're microscopic, are thread-like structures, and any kind of digging will damage those threads, which affects their breeding and affects their usefulness at storing minerals and also supplying nutrients to plants. So the no dig method has been around for a long time. My mum played around with this, where you basically just put everything on top of the ground, and that suited me, because when I came to Serpentine, I had a section of very hard clay and you couldn't dig in it, but even a crowbar bounced. So we just started throwing things on top of it. Obviously I had horse manure, but straw went out there, shredded paper went out there, food scraps went out, and to keep dogs off, I just put cardboard over the top. So you can just add any organic matter over the top, and the microbes and the worms will take all that goodness down and mix it. And over a period of 30 years since I've been here, my rock hard clay is now quite workable to about 40 centimetres. So they will work for you. So I showed that book there because you can Google that and get some more information on how to do that. It's quite easy and it's fun to do. Obviously, one of the important things that you have to remember is that vegetables do need more water than most other plants, especially Australian native plants. So you're going to be pushed through summer with your only 3 with only 3 days to water. You're going to have to hand water as well, but you can add things like shade, like on this garden bed here. And I've got some structures like this where I've got stakes and I've staple gunned. I've got an electric staple gun, the shade cloth on the top, and then these all get rolled up and put away over winter because I don't need them, but they come back for summer. So you don't have to go to any huge expense to build big covers. You can have individual ones for garden beds, but growing in summer is really tough. So I'm suggesting if you're starting out, don't think about starting in summer, start now, because now that the temperatures are cooling down, it's far more forgiving. And you won't have the same issues with ground drying out, which I do talk about how you can improve and so forth. I've mentioned wicking beds there. Now, those blue drums that I've got raspberries growing in those. Wicking beds are simply like a self-watering pot plant, which was really popular in the 70s and 80s. And you can still buy a few of them. But essentially, you create a base of like a water holding base. So you put gravel in there to hold the soil up, and then you would lay a geotex fabric or shade cloth across it, and then put a little weep hole to exactly where the soil and that shade cloth meet. And so that's your overflow, but you fill up from the top. And so the stressed plants, plants that need a lot of water, like Asian greens and lettuces, love wicking beds. A lot of plants don't like them. Most Mediterranean plants wouldn't like them because the soil, although it might not be really wet, they still don't like that dampness. But it's something to consider if you want to grow Asian greens. Now, plant food. What you are trying to do is not so much feed the plants, but feed the microbes that live in the soil. And that's a different way of thinking to gardening that is actually been promoted in regenerative agriculture and is now creeping into horticulture and domestic garden. So if you can feed the microbes, we now know through microbiology and ecology that there is a relationship between microbes and plants, a special relationship. And I've done quite a bit of work in this with some of my friends, but there are 4 microbes that have been isolated that are essential to all plants. And you don't have to get into this so much when you are first starting, but it's become a bit of an obsession for me, and I have my own microscope now so that I can see that I do have those 4 microbes. And just for your interest, it is bacteria, fungi, protozoa, and nematodes, which you may hear bad things about, but of the 3,000 nematode species, there are only 3 that actually eat roots, like on tomatoes and things. So they're very important in the scheme of things, and they attach themselves on the plant roots and they share food and nutrients. So the plants take down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, as we learned in school science, photosynthesis, but they have an excess of sugar or food. And the microbes, being animals/creatures, need sugar to survive. So they exchange sugar from the plant for minerals which they have stored. So bacteria consuming the organic matter in the soil lock up nitrogen in a water-soluble form specifically for plants. And the plant will say, I need so many milligrams of nitrogen today, thank you. And Mr. Bacteria will say, well, I need so many milligrams of food. Now that's a very simplistic form of saying it, but that's what we know is going on. They don't talk to each other. They've put, scientists have put dye into these systems and have seen pulses going on so that they do know that chemical reactions and exchanges are taking place. That's a little bit off track, but it's one of my obsessions, and you might like to go and read about that. I've included some of the things that you can use. Now, one to really get into is compost and compost teas. You can use that from worm farms as well as your compost bin. You are breeding microbes in your compost bin and your worm farms. That's what you're doing. You might see visible creatures, but it's the invisible creatures that are the primary feeders. They're the ones that consume the food first. They are the ones that lock up all of these minerals, and they're the absolute gold in your compost. And you can put a kilo of those into a stocking, soak it in a bucket, put an aquarium pump in there and push oxygen through over 24 hours, and you will, you know, the microbes go ballistic breeding because they are oxygen loving creatures, so that they breed crazy. So you're pouring more microbes into your soil, and that's what makes your plants grow. So it costs you nothing other than your time. So look at doing that. Do some research. Another critical factor for growing vegetables is sunlight. We get too much of it in our Australian climate, but a lot of people try to grow veggies in shade, and there are very few that will. Some will put up with a little bit. Lettuces will grow in dappled shade and grow, you know, particularly like the frilly, freckled and frilly oak leaf lettuces love a little bit of dappled shade, but they just must get some sunlight. Otherwise, they'll go leggy and they just won't survive. So it's usually too much sun that is our problem. We don't have to worry too much about that one. Now, if you're growing from seed, this is my theory, and I've proven this a lot. And not only does it save you money, but you'll find that because you are growing a little slower in a domestic situation, the cell walls of your plants grow slower and stronger, and they're not quite as sweet to slaters as the ones that you'll go and buy from a garden centre, because they're a trade nursery. They have to get them up and strong and growing very, very quickly. So they're forced with industrial fertiliser and so forth, and slaters go ballistic. You can put little collars of milk bottles and cool drink bottles around them, but if you get into trying to grow your own seeds, you will find that they survive slater attacks. Well, they just don't seem to attract the slaters. I grow a lot of mine in toilet rolls. You can see up in that top right-hand slide there. I fill the toilet rolls with soil, and just for support, I put them in an old, 12-cell tray from a nursery. And what I find with growing them in those toilet rolls is you can actually bury the whole thing so that they don't ever suffer transplant shock, and you don't have to worry about that. Now, that slide in the middle, I include that because I did a little trial to see how compost tea can actually improve your strength and growth of your plants. So the lettuces on the left, these were all planted at the same time, and I applied the compost tea just after germination. So we're looking at that slide and down the bottom there. The lettuces on the left actually got the compost tea on them. The ones on the right didn't. Interestingly enough, after about 4 weeks, they'd almost caught up, but these went on, they just were much stronger looking plants, although the others caught up in size, they weren't as dense. So it certainly does work. Mention transplant. Oh, sorry, someone had a question?
Just to interrupt. Just you referenced that photo before with the compost tea. It's a little hard to see because the way you've shared your screen, it's the split screen. So we can see your current slide and the next slide rather than just the slide itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know why that's happened because I've got that on the... Okay, so you've got all of these slides showing.
Correct, yeah. So it's making the text a little hard to read and the photos a little small.
Right, I wonder if I can close that. I'm really sorry, I don't know why that's happening. Right, I better get back previous slides, and we'll go back to previous one. So this one here, growing from seed, you're getting
I'll take myself off mute. Yes, yeah, getting both slides and the little viewer panel at the bottom.
If I go back to new share and see if we can get the right one, because I've actually hit the one that says that, and that's really, really weird. Oh, maybe is that it? Is that better if I hit that one?
It's still showing the same thing as I think.
Okay, I'll try again. Screen 2.
Yep, that's it. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you can see that slide better now.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'll just go back. Previous. There we go. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? How the difference between the two. And you know, my husband's a bit of a skeptical person at the best. He's been a teacher for many years, and I think all teachers trust nobody or anything. And he wouldn't believe me till I did that experiment. He went, wow. And we now spray compost tea out on our horse paddocks because it's just so good for the soil. Right, so we'll get to the next one. Okay, so when you go to transplant, plants will suffer a little bit of shock, and one of the best things you can do is the moment you get them into the soil is give them get a watering can and either use seaweed powder like I do, I buy it as a concentrate, or you can use what's the very popular commercial one? Sea salt. Yeah. Have a drink. Sorry about that. But yes, they will suffer a little bit of shock. So I love using my toilet rolls, or as that slide on the right shows, using coir ones where you can plant the whole thing. You don't have to worry about that shock so much as you do from pulling them out of cells. So certainly consider that. Now, this is something else that you can get involved in further down the track, but it's something to consider just at the back of your mind when you start planting, that plants can be included in plant groups that all have special needs. If you can remember that peas and beans all belong to like a legume group, the legumes actually take nitrogen from the atmosphere and they'll put that into your soil. So they're a really, really useful plant to grow in between all plantings if you've got plenty of time. Of course, peas will generally only grow over winter and beans only over summer in Australia. So they're a useful thing to do if you want to, you grow any crop at all, put a crop of legumes after it, and it will build up your soil. You can just let them grow through the whole stage. You can harvest them, or you can just let them die down and put more compost over the top, and you know that you have enriched your soil. So that's group one. You can see there on my list how they've all been listed together. Group two, leafy greens and salad greens, and also brassicas. And the group three are fruiting vegetables like with strawberries or tomatoes and so forth. And then group four is basically putting in a nutrient cover crop, just like the legumes, but you can do the same thing with most kinds of green crops that you can go and buy, and I've given you an example of it. Now, it's not terribly important, but if you had 4 containers and you numbered them 1 to 4, you could do exactly that rotation. So it's a good practice to get into, because it helps with eliminating diseases in the soil just by varying the types of plants that you grow. So a good thing to learn. And I've included there because all of those different pictures of containers, don't ever eliminate growing veggies in containers. Wheelbarrows, you can go along to a tip shop and get wheelbarrows really, really cheaply that, are getting rusty or whatever. And they're fantastic as little raised garden beds, and they look attractive. Make sure you put a couple of annual flowers in there, because the flowers promote the bees coming in, so you get lots of pollination with whatever you put. So I always plant alyssum everywhere around my place. Alyssum and calendulas and cosmos. They're my 3 go-to annuals, and I just keep the seeds and I keep sprinkling them around so that you always got annuals and bees coming in. So look, sometimes containers can be quite quirky, so keep, somebody's used a Weber kettle there. I've got all kinds of things in containers. We just recently, our swimming pool filter, it's a sand filter, sprung a leak. So we took that out and sawed the top off it. So it looked like a mine. It's round, this giant planet big, thick, 2 centimetre thick plastic container. We chop the top off, so it's sort of like an eggshell with the top taken off. And I've turned that into a wicker bed, and I'm growing herbs in it, and it's a beautiful aqua colour, so it looks great in the garden. So there's all kinds of things you can use. Now, there's another thing that you can get involved, which will also help with pest control, called companion planting. And there's lots of plants that like to be together, and there's lots that hate each other. The most famous group of plants that love to be together was first made very popular by North American Indian Hopis and a whole lot of Navajo Indians growing corn. So they would put the corn in first, and they would wait for the corn to get to about 30 centimetres high, and then in around the corn they would plant beans, and the beans would curl up the corn as the corn was growing. And then the moment the beans started to take off, they'd also put pumpkins or squashes or zucchinis or anything from that same family around the base. And those three plants get on extremely well. So have a try. Just a word of warning, corn needs lots of water. So it grows quite well in a wicking bed if you're trying to plant corn. Now, the opposite end of the scale is a market garden. For whatever reason, for commercial reasons, there's only one type of plant growing, row after row after row, acre after acre. They are inundated with pests, so they spray with pesticides consistently. If you can think multiple plantings, so when you buy a punnet of vegetables, share it with your neighbours and only take half and mix plants together. Multiple groups and diverse groups grow far more successfully. And that's one of the things that permaculture gardeners do. They will never plant in long rows of monoculture. And try, if you see that middle slide down there, you'll see what I'm talking about. And lots of community gardens are practicing this sort of thing too. So they'll put flowers, marigolds, calendulas in, and you can see all different sorts of plants growing in there together. Oops, sorry. Get back again. I like to, because there's just so many pesticides and herbicides around, to try and concentrate on what we can do naturally to reduce any kind of chemical. Now, the first thing to do is exclusion. So if you look down here, I grow a lot of my plants in bathtubs because I have so many big trees around my property, that the gum trees particularly, because they've lived for hundreds of thousands of years without any nutrition, just come for miles to my compost bins and my veggie gardens. So I've tripped them now. I've got all these raised garden beds, except potatoes and garlic, which I plant in the soil. And the moment I put those plants in, I generally put netting over. 2 reasons. My chickens are free range across the property, so even if they jumped on that, they're not going to bother. I actually have a lot of mine now. I've got hoops that we've made from fencing wire. That particular one, they're only flat, so there's plenty of room for the plant to grow. And the second reason I put that on there is if you're growing brassicas, there is simply no way to stop white butterflies coming in unless you have got this fine exclusion netting. And the other good part about it, if you start growing fruiting plants, is that this exclusion netting stops fruit fly. So it's not exactly cheap, but it is just a worthwhile investment, and I just keep using them year after year. I take them off carefully, roll them up, put them out and bring them back again. So they are definitely the best way of stopping bugs. You can do a whole lot of other things. So we've got an insect hotel up there. Again, at my place, there's so many different trees around and shrubs and things that I have set an insect hotel up, but I know that I have got little borers and flower wasps and all kinds of things because there's so many hiding places for them. So the more you can grow, you don't have to go and buy one of these things. A lot of insects like to live in wood, some like to live in clay. So you can just put a few bricks together, particularly those fast bricks, and fill some with bamboo and some with some clay, and that will do too. So they've got plenty of places to live. The middle slide just emphasises my use of flowers. Alyssum is a particularly good one. It's a very sweet smell flower, and it attracts not just bees, but believe it or not, flies are known to pollinate more flowers than bees are. So flies are very useful to fight them coming into our house and annoying us. But the sweet smelling flowers will also attract things like, it's called a flower wasp, all kinds of different beneficial insects to your garden. I noted there that you can get some organic sprays and powders. If you have a look, they're usually put on there that, you know, they're recognised by NASA, which is a certified organic organisation, so you can go down that path. Now, what and when and how to plant is usually one of the questions I'm asked. There is a really good guide that you can get as an app called Gardenate. It's evolved, and it's actually much better now than it used to be. If you just Google that on your Play Store or whatever phone that you have, and if you put in there, don't put that we are a temperate climate or a Mediterranean climate. We are close to arid. If you put in arid, you'll make sure that you get plants that will survive, and it will give you the months to plant. So that's something, if you like using the phone, go for that one straight away. If you want to do something up here on the right hand side, there's the booklet that is downloadable. It's online. It's produced by the Waste Authority for schools and particularly school teachers. It's done term by term for Perth gardening, and it talks not only about the plants that you should grow, but also jobs to do in the garden, and you know, it particularly addresses young people as well. So you know, teachers are looking for jobs for their students. You could be looking for tasks for some of your kids, you know, like it might be making labels over winter, or cutting lengths of tie wire or something like that. So it's a really good thing to look for, and I've given you that link there so that you can go in and download it. I've actually laminated mine. I don't know if you can see on that picture, and I've put a little carabiner hook on there so that I keep that, I take it out with me and I keep it near my tap, and it's a really good, ready reference. The other really, really old and useful thing is the old Yates Garden Guide. I think they still make them, but you will find these in secondhand bookshops, and they will have some really sound basic advice for young gardeners. So look for something like that at, you know, if you've got friends at the library having book sales, or you know, that's my 3 basic guides to think about. So there's lots of things you can do to improve your knowledge. Certainly go to the library. My real advice would be to go down to your local community garden and just make some inquiries. Even if you don't want to join, they often have workshops. So I have done workshops for Byford Community Garden, Roley Stone, Kelmscott, Southern River. They do lots of very low cost workshops that will bring the public in and also increase their own gardening knowledge. Something else that community gardens do is they not only lease out plots, they also will have a few community garden beds. So, you know, you could pay a social membership, which, you know, might only cost you $20 or $30 a year. Go down when you can and just get into, you know, gardening with a few other people in their open, large community beds. It's a great way of sharing knowledge, meeting a few people and looking at what other people are doing, learning like that. Facebook and gardening groups, there's lots of local groups. So here in Serpentine, we started one, we call it Tuesday Serpy Edible Gardening Group. and we just meet informally. There's no club or anything. We just meet for a coffee, and sometimes we share seeds, sometimes we share cuttings, other times we just sit and chat. So there's lots of those groups going around. And the best way is you start and you fail, and then you say to yourself, well, what happened? If you can't work it out, you ask someone else that you know that does a bit of gardening. All right. There are lots and lots of variables with gardening. Sometimes it is a bad season. Sometimes it's you know, that work got in the way and you couldn't water for 3 days. You know, like these things happen. But heck, it's not, you know, it's you can always start again. It's easy, and gardens are very forgiving. You know, one of the most important thing is definitely preparing that soil, and that's why I wanted you to be able to look at that video so that you can see. And to get into composting, it's really, really important to improve your soil. And I wanted to show you this slide because in the film, I show you those 4 gardening groups, and I'll show you me planting the seeds of some snow peas, and you can see how big they grew. So this was an old stable area. Peas like a little bit of lime. That's one of the things that they do like, and they will grow quite well on coastal soil which has got lime in it, but it's quite a good idea to add a little bit of garden lime to the soil. I didn't have to do that because my old stables had limestone in the base, and obviously as the horses walked in and out over 15 years or whatever, they brought a bit out into that area in front of the old stables, and the peas went ballistic. And I had to put a ladder on there to climb up to get all those snow peas. They didn't grow as well this year, so that's telling me that perhaps most of that calcium has been used. So I'll have to put a little bit of garden lime out this winter, and I've already got some growing in tubes to go out. So I just wanted to share that slide with you. And that is basically it for a very quick view of how to get started. So what I'm going to do now is open it to any questions if you'd like to ask anything. So you'll have to unmute yourself, and then you can ask. If we don't get enough time, and I'll keep going. What are we at? 5:57. So yeah, we've got plenty of time. And then I'm going to try one of these videos, and I'll get someone to let me know if it is coming through very slow for some reason. If it is, I'll get back to you and we'll end the show, and then I will email you the YouTube link so that you can turn it on directly and have a look. So I call it turning sand into soil. That's about 10 minutes. And then planting the snow peas and the onions takes about 8 minutes. So it's not very long, and it'll be good to watch it tonight so that you can take in some of those things that I've said, and it'll be clear in your mind. But anyway, so we'll open it up now for some questions, any questions. So, you know, if you've tried some gardening, things didn't work, you can ask. If you've just got questions about particular plants to grow, I'm open to anything like that. So fire away. Hopefully everybody's still with me.
Robin, it's Liz again. There's a couple of questions in the chat function. Margaret asked a question, and as did Seema. So if you might want to check those out if you can.
Okay, so how to make compost tea, Margaret. Okay, so quickly with that, you take about 1 kilo of either worm castings or good compost, put it into a stocking, and you need to get a 20-litre, approximately 20-litre white drum. So you can get those, you can buy it from Bunnings, but you can get them for free from fish and chip shops because they keep mayonnaise in it. So they're easy to get hold. So tie that to the handle. You need to fill it with water. Now, it has to be distilled water or rainwater. So because the chlorine will kill the microbes. So if you've got chlorinated water. So if you're in the city, you fill the water in the bucket and leave it for 24 hours without a lid on, and the chlorine evaporates, dissipates. And then the next day you put the compost in. Once you've got your compost hanging in the stocking, you can add about a couple of tablespoons of molasses, because that feeds the microbes, gives them some food. And then you put an aquarium pump in. Now, they cost between $25 to $30, a really small one. And it'll have 2 tubes on there, and you turn the power on and you leave it for 24 hours, and then take the pump out, wash that all out nice and clean, and you can pour that absolutely straight onto your soil. It can't burn, there's nothing in there except compost and microbes. If you want to make it go further, you could, water it down 50%, but you don't have to. You can make as much as you like. Don't pour it on the leaves, pour it straight on the soil. Supposedly, you can put bacteria onto your leaves, and they, will attack bad bacteria. But I've had more success putting it straight on the soil, where it goes up through the roots. So that's it in a nutshell. Have a try. Google compost tea, but it's got to be aerated compost tea. That's what the pump does. The pump puts oxygen in. There's been lots of, you can make weed teas and all kinds of teas, because you are getting nutrients from those weeds, but it's the oxygen that makes the microbes breed. And that's the important thing, having that aquarium pump. Right, Seema has asked, should you grow veggies belonging to the same group at the same time? So I'm assuming, like, take for instance brassicas. I'm just going to have a drink. You can put them all in the same garden bed, but they are very heavy feeders, brassicas. I've got broccoli in one bed, and I've got cauliflowers in another, but I've also put some radishes in the bottom because they come up quickly. Brassicas are very slow growing, so you can grow faster growing plants underneath them, around them. You can plant, yeah. So the answer is yes, but just bear in mind that brassicas particularly need lots of food. What type of soil do you need to grow grapes? Well, I have actually got quite a few grapes growing. What can I tell you? That you just need a good loamy soil. It's got to be well drained. They don't like a huge amount of water, but they do need regular water. So all the Swan Valley grapes you'll find now, they never used to be, but they are all irrigated now on drip irrigation. So they're growing on, quite heavy clay, whereas if you go to Margaret River, it's more a loam, it's more open draining, and of course it's not as hot during the summer. So I could still say to you that grapes need a neutral, that same pH value from about 6 to 7.5. They won't grow outside of that range. So they don't like it too alkaline. They'll go yellow. So be careful with that. And what veggies should you plant? Now, Seema, that's where you need to go on your garden guide. But if you think of what we should be eating over winter, it's all the brassicas. So cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli. And onions and leeks, then root crops, carrots, beetroot. And now that's something I didn't talk to you about, talking about root crops, carrots and beetroot, and parsnips. I'm just trying to think of any other turnips. Don't ever buy seedlings of those. They do not transplant. You'll have to plant them from seed. It's really quite difficult to keep them thin. You get lots and lots come up. And carrots are very slow to germinate. They sometimes take up to 3 weeks. So a general piece of advice, so you know where you've planted them, is always put radish seeds with your carrots and parsnips, so that you can see where they come up, because radishes will come up in 3 days and you go, oh, that's where they are. They won't outstrip because they grow really quick. Carrots grow a bit slower. Easiest plants to start with are Asian greens. Go and get yourself a ton of mixed Asian greens like pak choi and a few different ones. And they grow really, really fast. And you can get to cut them up and enjoy them in a stir fry. After that, the next easiest, I think, for winter, brassicas are really easy. Very little happens to them other than white butterflies getting them. So I'd have a go at doing that now. Definitely herbs. Herbs are really simple to grow. So if you put in rosemary, all the Mediterranean herbs, rosemary, oregano, thyme, sage, simple, and you can go out and pick them whenever you like. Nothing nicer than making a pasta dish. Okay. Okay. So iron levels in the bore water. The only way to deal with that is make sure you're not overhead spraying. I find that I only have a little bit, not much at Serpentine where we are. And when we first changed bores, I noticed I've got roses. They didn't like it very much, so I've made sure they don't get overhead spray. And the veggies will be fine as long as you run that brown trickle hose, and even if you have the little fine irrigator micro sprays, it's on the ground. It just doesn't seem to hurt them as much. They seem to put up with it. I wouldn't be using rainwater on vegetables. It's too precious and it doesn't go very far. I've got a 2,000 gallon, which what's that, about 5,000 litres or whatever, tank that's it runs by gravity feed into my laundry. It's like emergency water if my electricity goes off. And quite often it's full at the end of the or in summer. I think, oh, I'm going to use that up, and I'll put that on a gravity fed low emit sprinkler, and it drains it really quickly. So, precious rainwater. Let's have a look and see if there's any more there. I think that's down to the end. Are there companion plants for grapes? I don't know the answer to that one, but I do know that a lot of vignerons grow a rose at the end of each grapevine, like rows of grapevines, because roses are great indicators of pests that are flying around. So if the rose gets it first and starts looking sick, they know to be looking for something. So that could be an idea to use as an indicator plant. Okay, now who is it? Leslie, I think it is a little bit worried about chlorine in the town water. It's the amount of chlorine that's actually going into the ground is so small, and microbes can handle it extremely well. Chlorine dissipates really quickly. It's put in those tanks and underground settling tanks, obviously to kill bacteria. And yes, you're right, in huge amounts it can kill them in the soil. But by the time it gets to you, because of the aeration, it is going to be dissipated and it's not going to bother the plants too much. So don't worry about it. Best time to plant tomatoes. Now this is a tricky one. Tomatoes hate cold, they hate frost. And I still remember my dad running out in spring, putting newspaper over the top of the tomatoes. So it's great to try and grow some seeds if you're trying to grow your own heritage tomatoes. You start them in around about July, August in a hothouse, but don't put them out till October to November, because any cold nights and it knocks them around. You can try putting a plastic bag around them, but make sure the top's open, because they will get viruses and mildews and things like that. So tomatoes are actually quite tricky to grow, and I wouldn't be growing them if I was a beginner. I would make sure that I thought I would be a pretty confident gardener before I start growing tomatoes, because they do topple over really quickly. So yeah, avoid the tomatoes for a while. We've just about gone through. Oh, I've come out of presenter slideshow. Can somebody tell me what's happening there? Lorraine, was it? You can't see. what was going on? Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
Liz.
No, that was that message. There's split screen. Yep.
Yeah.
No worry, we fixed that.
Yeah. All good.
And I will send the recording of all of this, so that's no problem at all. And I'll send the videos as well. So, are there any things that I haven't touched on that you'd like to get some more information on? Can think of. So, remembering, start small, start in a container. Start perhaps with Asian greens. When you go along to the garden centre, make sure you avoid any plants that are root vegetables. So carrots, beetroot, parsnips and onions. Oh, no, not onions. They'll survive. They're fine. It's just the big long root crops. And they sell them. Naughty, but they do sell them. Because they just don't transplant very well, and they just never get going, and it really is quite simple. Some people complain that carrot seeds are too small, so don't put them out when it's blowing. Another little trick you can use is get some toilet paper and just use your garden sprayer till it, like a little handheld sprayer, till it's just got a little sprinkling of water on it. Throw a few carrot seeds on it, and they kind of stick, and then you can lay that on the top of the surface and put a tiny weeny little bit of sand over the top and keep it moist. The thing about carrots is that they do need a lot of moisture, and they can't be very deeply planted. So that's quite limiting to when you can plant, because this time of the year it's quite tricky. You've got to wait for the first rains till there's lots of moisture. Otherwise, another trick you can use is to put some wet newspaper over it once you've put them in. And of course, plants don't need sunlight to germinate. They need moisture and warmth. But once they've germinated, you have to rip that piece of paper off. Otherwise, they will have no nitrogen, and they'll be yellow and then they die. So I think that's probably it. Any other questions anyone can think of that I haven't covered? And after this workshop, I'm more than happy to answer questions via email if you've got anything that comes up, and if I haven't got the answer, I'll certainly send it to you or find it. But yeah, I don't mind continuing communications if you want to. And one of my big passions is composting, so there is another workshop coming up on that. But if you get into compost and have any issues with that, I'm more than happy to answer. And there's only two things that go wrong with compost. It's either too dry or too wet, and you fix both of them really simply. So you can be an expert in composting very quickly. So I think that's probably it. So we might leave it at that, and then I will. Oh, sorry. I will have a go now at. I'll just try and share the my video and see if it works. So we've got a. Now, can you see? Can someone let me know? Can you see that slide that has got me with looking at some sand? Can someone tell me?
Yep, we can see that.
Excellent. Now, what I'm going to do is play and see what happens if you can hear that. Is that coming through, or is it coming through slowly?
It's very stilted. It's like every
That's what
5. Yeah,
sure.
I think it's because your internet videos are quite hard to play via Zoom. I suspect it's to do with your internet strength.
Yeah, I think that might be what it is too. So I'll just pause that, and what I'll do is I'll send them off to you via email now, and you can watch them. So the first one is how to convert that horrible, useless sand into a good soil, and use this even on your own soil. So basically what I've done is bought a clay product, and it's a once-off treatment. You can follow the directions, but I think the message is a bit like planting, is that you start small and you keep adding small amounts to it and adding water to it, and then you'll find that it will clump. And when it's clumping, in small clumps, that's the perfect stage. Don't wait till it gets really slimy and slippery. And that's the basis of it. And then, of course, then you've got to add organic matter from your compost. You can also add some wetter, eco-wet to stop the hydrophobia. But that's basically how you change it. And so there is no need to buy expensive soils. The second one actually shows me planting and talking about, you know, transplant shock and how to, you know, pull plants apart, tease them and so forth. So it's just a little bit of extra help, and show you, I'm not fibbing. They are actually growing. So yeah, so enjoy that, and you can get back to me and let me know. And if there's any questions based on those videos themselves, then get back to me again. And yeah, I'll just have to remember about YouTube's not screening very well. But yeah, you're right. I think I've seen them do that before. I did try to see if I could use the movie maker that the software that I had used to make the movie, but it didn't seem to work either. So it must be my internet speed that's stopping that. All right. So thank you, people, for coming along, and I'll send the videos, and then tomorrow I will send the recording of the whole thing as well. And thank you for supporting Environment House and myself. And I hope to hear from you again. Thank you.